So, hello and welcome back to the next episode of the Self Development with Tactics podcast and or video, whatever you're watching here. And I actually, this is actually the second episode for today, which is at my point of view the first ever time where I do just, made or produced or recorded two entire episodes on one day during the fucking week. So it's, not weekend. This is not an episode that I did just, somewhen, but this is actually an episode that I made today, and whenever you are just seeing, okay, this was uploaded on the 5th of March, I've actually produced it on 5th of March. So I quickly thought should I actually just start to work out first and then, maybe even just record another episode, or should I actually record another episode and or actually do something else? It doesn't have to be necessarily be doing sports, but I do have to do it today. But I quite decided today to actually make another episode because I quite felt like doing it. Even though I'm just seeing it's a little late, I'm going to have a little bit of time problems through this, even though I do not have to do this podcast session today because I actually did my episode. But you know what? Nevertheless, I'm doing it because there's still a little bit left of the extreme ownership summary. So the book that I was talking about yesterday as well, which is definitely, at my point of view, a very great book to read. And this is actually something I do have to tell you a story. Which is, I think, it's not that often that I do have to tell a great story or a story in general. It doesn't have to be great at all. But I've actually decided to really tried with reading books again. So it was quite a hard time for me because I always was like, okay, I practically do not or theoretically do not need to do not really need to read books at all, because at my point of view there's also great information on the web and so on, and therefore I just thought like, this is something that's kind of optional, and this is something I can do, but I necessarily do not have to. On the other hand, and also because Gary Vee, such a person who is pretty much emphasizing and underlining that you do not have to read books to be successful, because he is successful and he has never read a book, which is, at my point of view, a really great thing to do, to really show, okay, this is not something you have to do. This is something you could do if you want to, but it's not in terms of, you just, read 100 pages a day and you're gonna be successful. On the other hand, there is also just so many people that are just, reading so many books. And most of them, saying most of them is a little bit a generalization of, everything quite, but quite a lot of them are just really, really fucking wealthy and or successful with what they've done. And people like Elon Musk said, he actually learned how to pretty much run SpaceX or how to produce rockets through reading simple books, or just, books in general. And these books were, basically or of course about physics and or rocket fuels and rockets in general, which was quite impressive at my point of view, to just, you read a few books and that's fucking it, and then you are able to fucking buy a rocket. This is just amazing if it's, kind of working like this for everyone. Elon on himself is just a really intelligent and really smart guy, so therefore I'm not quite sure, if this is kind of, if this is kind of the same thing for everybody. But and there are a lot of other guys who do just, and a lot of, very successful people who do just, suggest people to read more books and to gain that knowledge and so on and so on and so on. So it's like, okay, a lot of people against one person, but the problem is this one person is really successful, and this one person is really someone I pretty much love, I would say. Gary is such a person that is so charismatic, and he's just so likable, and I think he does just produce a lot of good content, and I would even say it's some kind of a role model, even though it's, maybe I'm even modeling him. I think totally, because I'm just pretty much doing what he is saying. He says, okay, do a podcast. I'm doing a podcast. He says, put out more content on social media. I'll do it, even though I'm not doing it in a proper way like he suggests actually, but I'm actually putting it out. Did I get results from it? Yeah, I did. So therefore, it is a really complicated situation that I'm quite in right now. But, and there's the big but, I quite decided to get myself a book, try it, see if it's even doing well, or even if I am doing well with books in terms of actually just reading it. But if I just pay for it, I will definitely read it. If I wouldn't do this, I would just really kill myself if I actually wouldn't read the book. But if it's really a bad book, I won't, I think. But I decided to get myself. This is Marketing by Seth Godin. This is actually a book, by the way, that I've also discussed on this channel as well. This is actually an episode from today is Tuesday, I think, from Saturday actually. So a fairly new episode of mine. Why did I then just decide to read the whole book? Because I pretty much like Seth Godin. I think he's a pretty knowledgeable guy. He knows a lot of stuff. He has also an entrepreneurial background, which is especially for me important, because I do feel like, okay, do I really want to get any knowledge or any advice from somebody who hasn't achieved something on themselves? I don't want to, and this is also the reason why I do just look up the net worth of the people. I do not want to say that the net worth is a kind of factor that makes a people or makes a person just valuable in terms of what they're speaking and what they're talking about. Totally not. But it some kind of shows people that they have accomplished something. You for sure can be just working at companies and being there the best marketer in the whole world without having any net worth, because you just you haven't any own businesses and so on. But I do think like, okay, this is just something that I kind of want to look for, even though it's maybe not that backed up pretty well, and there's not such an evidence that this is also a factor or actually a factor that leads me to just get more out of the book than just without it. But especially when you just think like, okay, there are certain people who are really have no fucking net worth, like Socrates or Pluto or Einstein, or I think a pretty interesting one would be Dale Carnegie, the author's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Net worth? Fucking, this would be okay. So no, it's about Andrew Carnegie. The actual thing is, there is Andrew Carnegie, who was some kind of industrialist, and he had his own companies and he had a net worth of approximately 3 billion. And I just reading now if they actually kind of. So Andrew Carnegie had actually something to do with steel. So he was in the steel company or in the steel industry, and this is something that I've learned through Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which was a fairly bad read at my point of view. It is, I do see that a lot of people are suggesting it. A lot of people say, okay, this is, one of the business books everybody should read that, is quite interested in business and your own business and small business and whatever business, and I don't know. But at my point of view, it was such a bad book. Maybe it was because I didn't understand anything because of the language, or there actually wasn't that, good of an advice. I don't know. But I think let me see, because it would be, but I cannot find, nevertheless. So I will go ahead with The Extreme Ownership by Jaco Willing and Leif Babin book. I actually remembered the second one's name. Which is, I think, just a pity that he's never ever kind of just really, such important as Jaco. Even though, I do understand it, because Jaco has his podcast, and he's just more in the he's just such a thing of, he is just something like a public figure, and the other guy is not, as my point of view. Yeah, he has Twitter, I think, but Jaco, regularly posts on Instagram, and did have a lot of interviews and so on and so on and so on. So he's pretty much more the PR guy, I think, from these both two, and I think they actually both have a company together, in which they actually kinda pretty much train other companies or train the executives of other companies in terms of leadership, actually. But yeah, so leading up and down. Any good leader is immersed in the planning and execution of tasks, projects, and operations to move the team forward, to move the team toward a strategic goal. Such leaders possess insight into the bigger picture and why specific tasks need to be accomplished. So Willing explains that although the main leader will understand the big picture and understand all of the ins and outs of the task at hand, it is not entirely necessary that the junior members have all of the same knowledge. They obviously need as much information as required in order to lead their team through the correct actions and stages. Similarly, the junior leaders will have knowledge about tactical details that the senior leaders do not need to know. It is important that leaders of both levels understand the other's role and what is required of them. It is paramount that senior leaders explain to the junior leaders and troops executing the mission how their role contributes to the big picture. And troops executing the mission how their role contributes to big picture success. I don't even know what he wants to explain with that, but nevertheless, I will go on, or anyways, actually. I always say nevertheless. This is something I do quite either have to deal with or change, but I kind of think like, okay, if I'm saying it and it's, some kind of really provides me a little bit more fluency in terms of my speaking, I will just let it be it, I think, because if I would just, make the change and really try to make the change with, hurting my whole fluency, might not be the best thing. Even though I'm doing quite, a lot of failures or mistakes, actually, especially on days like today where speaking isn't going that well. I do not know why. The thing is, yesterday everything went quite well. Everything went very, very well. Speaking was well, the episode was well, everything was well. I don't know why today is just such a day that, I say, okay, speaking is not running that good or it's not going that good. But yeah, so decisiveness and uncertainty. As a leader, it is pretty easy to want to hold off committing or executing a plan until you are 100% certain. Certain that you have come up with the best option. However, Willing explains that sometimes waiting for this certainty only delays things, and this can cause more problems. A really great leader will understand that research is important, but in many cases they need to have the ability to take important decisions based on educated guesses. Willing stresses that in these situations, a leader should look on past experiences and consider the possible outcomes in order to make these decisions. Sometimes you have to just get started before you are 100% certain, but a great leader will be able to lead a team effectively to the right actions. And I think that's some kind of true. Often I also feel like, okay, I'm not quite sure of a concept in terms of making actually a design, but most of the time I feel like, okay, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. I'm not quite sure if this is working out some sort of. I'm not quite sure of the overall project. The thing is, I know myself, and I know that I can, and I'm pretty good at executing things. And I pretty much hate to plan things in, such a long task. I do like planning things. I do like thinking about things and just kind of thinking about if this makes sense, if this doesn't make sense, will this work? And so the whole planning thing. This is something I definitely like to do. But sometimes I come just to the point where I just say, okay, I've been just, thinking about it and or just kind of planning this thing for such a long time that I quite, because I know myself, quite decide that I start to execute, or just I want to start to execute, because I understand that when I execute, I know, or I just learn and progress much faster than when I'm just, having every single information that I need, having every single, graphic asset that I need, having every color that I need, having every, shit that I need. And this is something that always comes up to who you are. If you're a person that really likes to plan things, from the first point on to, the really last step of your project, then totally do it. I won't say that you shouldn't do it if this is your DNA, but I'm not such a person. I've quite never been such an organized person, which is often also just really fucked up. Also, or especially in terms of me not finding any things because I've all lost them or just, put them anywhere. This is something you shouldn't do. But I do quite understand that I'm very fast at executing, or I could be very fast. It also, or always also depends on whom you're working with, if this person is actually productive or not, whom you're sitting next to, so your partners, your colleagues, whatever. This might distract you a little, and therefore you aren't as fast as you could be, and so on and so on, and so on and so on and so on. And so this always comes up to you, and this really underlines it once again that we are all individuals. And this kind of brings me back to the part of the books. I quite feel like, and I don't know, this is the thing, I've never been just reading books ever. I've once read things, I've really enjoyed them because, most of the time it was actually fiction. Most of the time I really just enjoyed them and enjoyed reading them actually, and I liked the stories. Maybe this was even the reason, but I've always been some kind of reading books. As a very child, never ever. As I grew older, I just started a little bit. I read a few books. A few of them actually have one of my favorite books here in my room, somewhere in my not in my closet, but in some kind of drawer thing, whatever. And but this is also fiction. But at the end, I didn't really know, and this was the whole problem. I didn't really know if books are actually working for me, and therefore I decided, okay, I'll give it a try. I buy myself a book and see what I can learn from that. The problem is, and therefore I just, it really took me quite a long time to just, decide what I'm going to talk about and what I'm going to read or what I'm going to buy. Because actually, this is marketing cost me 14 euros, which is quite 14 euros. It was 13.90 or something. Which would be approximately 16 US dollars or 12 pounds or 1,800 Japanese yen, and or, oh my god, 21 Canadian dollars or 15 Swiss francs, and so therefore it was quite hard for me to just really decide, okay, what I'm going to read. I'm just giving it a try, and therefore it just has to be something, something in the middle. Something that I can then afterwards say, okay, this was a great book, I've learned something from it, but maybe it wasn't as much fun reading for me, or it wasn't quite, as much manageable for me, because sometimes I especially feel like, okay, I do not have that much time. It always then just comes up to how much I spend on social media in terms of actually engaging on these platforms. I'm only talking about Instagram because on the other things I'm not pretty much engaging, which is totally a thing I should not do. I should engage on every single platform, and also in terms of or only in terms of engaging on these platforms. But yeah, I think I have to go on. So Willing's formula for a true leader. A true leader must be a leader, but also capable of following. This is something I think is important. I think it is very important as a leader to really also be truthful to yourself and say, okay, this is something that I'm maybe not good at, but I do have some employees or I do have some team members that are very, very good at this certain task. And then just follow them, because you're just really relying on them. And okay, these are just, really good people and they understand what they're talking about. And I think this is important as a character trait for a leader, because I often do have the picture in my mind that a lot of leaders are just like, I'm the best, I can do everything, I'm knowledgeable in every fucking area, and so on, which is totally quite not the truth, I cannot be intimidated, which is something I've never known. Okay. Has a level of aggression that's not overbearing. Okay, what does overbearing mean, by the way? Okay, yeah. Is calm and centered, but still human and not robotic. Totally. Having some kind of empathy is also important, I would say. Is confident always, but not cocky. Always be brave, but not foolish. Be competitive, but when facing a loss, be gracious and good sport. And a good sport is not obsessed with the tiny details, but knows when they are important. Both physically and mentally strong. Is humble, has a good relation with team members, but isn't too close, remains professional, and has nothing to prove but everything to prove. Okay, yeah, I think these all the poems do just kind of make sense, you know. Yeah, they all kind of make sense. And now let's go on to the conclusion. It's a fairly long conclusion actually, and the action steps. So I go, through the action steps at first because I'm actually because I'm just there. And yeah, so there are many concepts in this book that can be applied to leaders of any kind, whether it be a leader in battle, of a sports team, of a business, or even of a family. See what you can take away from this and apply it into your own leadership role. And I do, because I was thinking about parenting and all these things quite a lot about. I've actually also been thinking about this book as some guideline for parents as well. And I think this is actually the shit, because leaders actually parents as well, or parents are actually leaders as well, at my point of view at least. And I think a lot of them don't know that. And a lot of them, if I'm just, taking the book and just, saying, okay, according to the book, not a lot of people are just really kind of handling stuffs and or just, acting like they should act often. So maybe it's only in my terms. So, but, I'm thankful that I'm actually on this earth and that I'm actually living. So I think I shouldn't complain too much. The key takeaways. A leader is only as good as the team behind them. Totally true. A leader is entirely responsible for their team's actions. When facing failure, a leader must take responsibility. If a team member isn't performing, it's up to the leader to try and mentor them. If they continue to underperform, the leader must consider the whole team and let the member go. Leaders need to be confident but not cocky. It is important that they leave their ego at the door and remember the team's goals are that the team's goals are their goals. Forget your own personal agenda. It's important that a leader truly believes in the work that they are doing, and leaders should learn how to decentralize power and responsibility, have junior leaders leading their own teams within the large team. Communication is key. You need to ensure that everyone understands what is expected of them at all times. It is important to keep strategies as simple as possible. Definitely something that I'm going to make a post about, or I'm going to post tomorrow actually. It's a leader's job to understand the big picture and full scope of any mission, then relay the necessary information to junior leaders and team members. Actually, because I just some kind of thought about it, an actually positive side of really physical books besides actually having them for a longer time and having them secure and whatever. But yeah, okay, maybe. And also because of the feeling, I also wanted to buy myself a book, a physical book, because I haven't been reading a physical book in such a long time. On one hand, it is pretty problematic because I'm always taking it with me, and therefore it's just maybe taking up a lot of room, and therefore I might just destroy it because I'm just putting everything into my fucking school bag, and I'm not quite thinking about all the time like, okay, yeah, there's a book in it, and I should be a little bit more, a little bit more nice to my school bag and not, just punch everything in like, you might just know what I mean. But yeah, and what I actually want to say is that you can actually underline things and, just really pretty much underline or use a highlighter and just write some things, in it as well, which is something that is really making this book personal. And I think this is really some of the reasons why actually people would like to have a book. And I think it's also nicer to just, go through it. Just because you can just look up, the pages very easily. And with an ebook, it also depends on what ebook you're having. But mine that I was having, that, it just took a little while until, the page was turned and everything was okay. And it wasn't there fast, and highlighting was, okay. highlighting did work, but it wasn't, working like, okay, this is so amazing or whatever. But yeah, and an ebook is also good in terms of, if you do not have that much space, while taking it with you, this is also good. But I think at home, actually having some kind of library, some private library, is actually very, very great. Just having one ebook or several ebooks staying in there isn't at my point of view that nice. It's just nice to have, or to just see, okay, there are a few books in it, and this is just nice, and yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, the further reading. These are actually all of them. Yeah, not all of them. Actually, not all of them. Yeah. A similar book with similar principles is The Way of the Seal by Mark Divin. Divin identifies a number of skills that you can build on and develop. These skills align with the Seal's way of life and will enable you to think and act like an elite warrior. These lessons in leadership and life are applicable to business, personal life, and any challenges you may face. Mark Devine has a series of exercises and questions that will help you to develop the necessary skills. The Way of the Seal is an enjoyable and educational read for everyone looking to develop their leadership skills. And if you enjoy this, then definitely check out Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. Actually made a few episodes on that book, so I actually kind of finished the summary as well. So therefore, please check it out. I won't go, yeah. So by Simon Sinek, as a leader, it's important to create a culture that leaves everyone happy and fulfilled, definitely. This is exactly what Simon describes. Simon emphasizes that when an environment is built on trust, teams will work together, have each other's backs, and survive and thrive. And last but not least, actually, How to Win Friends and Influence People. One of my very favorite books, and I would even suggest you to, go through it. I did make a few episodes of it as well on my channel and or the podcast. But because I have just started to just really name these podcasts, like, the books that I've just been reading in them, or the summaries that I've been reading in them, it is pretty hard to just, go to them and just, being able to kind of find them. But yeah. So How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie is a book that aims to help you convince people to share your way of thinking to avoid arguments and to become more liked. This is actually a great summary of it, pretty short, pretty to the point, and it's a pretty fucking good book, and still I think on rank or chart 4 on Amazon or something in terms of actual non-fiction, and the subcategory was maybe self-help. Yeah, self-help probably. It's still a great book. You can't say anything against it. It's just a really great book. And Guidelines, which is the last book, which is actually the book that the author of this article, as I always explain, I think it's just, but for the podcast listeners, and you might not have just been gone through the last one, and, therefore I'm just going to explain it as well. So Guidelines is a book by the author of this summary, so the paulminus.com website. This is a book that's made out of 33 self-help books, one of the best-sellings, or he says the best-sellings. And this is actually an 18-page ebook or 150-minute audiobook with 31 guidelines from these 33 books, which I do still not understand quite. And, the actual cost of all these 33 books is actually 300. Yes. And with that being said, I actually think that I'm going to end this episode. It's a fairly, and I'm quite fucking dark, I just see. Yeah, but I hope this is okay. I think it's fine. And I do not want to stress myself that much in terms of actually being able to just achieve everything that I'm going to achieve or willing to achieve today, because I will work out right now. Something that I'm pumped for quite all the time, especially when I do have the time to just really do it in some kind of way that I just feel like, okay, I can do it, and I do not have to stress myself out to actually being able to do it and whatever. I hope this episode wasn't too funky for you, because I felt like, speaking didn't went that well. I was maybe a little bit too fast. But yeah, some days are just good, some days are just bad. This is what it is. This is what life is. And fortunately, life has curves, and it's not always like a flat line. And yeah, with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful day or night, whatever time zone you're in. And I hope you very, very beautiful happiness. Beautiful happiness. Beautiful happiness, wealth, health, success. I hope you're giving back something. and don't forget about your legacy. That being said, hope you have a wonderful day. 2, 1.